Holy cow, welcome to Donnie's Hangout Adventures. You know, I don't watch as much wrestling, especially now with no internet. I don't watch as much wrestling as I used to. I don't watch much of the current product. I just don't. Wrestling, to me, seemed like it reached its greatest point, you know, and the glory years of the 80s. And then you had the 90s with the Attitude Era. I think in about the early 2000s, it's pretty much has reached its peak. You ain't going to have wrestling as good as it used to be. You're just not. We're like in PG era, and we have been in PG era for quite a few years. And let's be honest, WWE, it's boring with Roman Reigns as long as he's been champion. It's just completely boring. And it's completely predictable, too. And you have AEW, or as I call them, WCW 2.0. They basically just do what WCW did. They pretty much signed the aging veterans. What WCW did, it's the blueprint. WCW signed the aging veterans from WWE. And that's pretty much what WCW did, and that's one of the reasons WCW went down with the ship. Many other reasons too, but that was one of the reasons. So AEW, they've been signing WWE talents. These are stars that are in the Hall of Fame or will be in the Hall of Fame, and they're all aging. Sting, Chris Jericho, CM Punk, and etc., etc. Now, supposedly Sting's going to be retiring. Why he hasn't retired yet, I don't know. He's 64 years old. He's way past his prime. His prime was, let's be honest, was the 90s. And then you have Ric Flair. Ric Flair, I thought this for years. I thought Hogan was older than Flair. If I asked you who was older, who would you think was older? You would think that Hogan was older than Flair. And it's even surprising that these two are alive. When you really think about it, of all the wrestlers that have died in the past few years, it's actually quite surprising that two of the legends, no matter how you feel about Hogan, that two of the legends from the 80s and 90s are still alive. And when I research in my video, because I do research, Hogan's 70, Flair's 74. I always assumed that Hogan was older, but no, Flair is older. It's just that they wrestled around the same time, and you would think that one, I always thought Hogan was older. So Flair, God rest his soul, Terry Funk, had a lot of last matches. This is why me and a lot of other wrestling fans don't believe in these retirement matches people have, because Terry Funk had a lot of retirement matches. Flair, he's getting on that level of having retirement matches, when, quite frankly, why a doctor would clear for Flair to even get in the ring to cut a promo is beyond me, because Flair has had a lot of heart problems in the last few years. Is it from his drinking days? Could be. And he probably still drinks to this day. So, do you remember here, what was it, a year or two ago, where Flair had his last match? Yeah, retirement match. We had thought, and he was like 73 at that point. I just wish we could go back to when he had his last match with HBK. That was actually a good match, and that was the way to go out. But of course, he didn't go out because he went to TNA, and he had some more last matches, and then he had another last match. This is the problem with a lot of wrestlers. It's happened to an Undertaker. He couldn't figure out, it's not just wrestling. It's sports in general. If they can't figure out when to walk away, when it's time to hang it up, because you don't have it anymore. Undertaker had that problem for quite a few years, but finally figured out I can't hang anymore. I need to think about retiring. So, I really don't watch much of WCW's product. I'm sorry, AEW's product. I don't really watch much of their product. But you see Sting in the ring, who's 64. I always thought he was older too, but nonetheless. And he's talking about he wants to retire. And then out comes Ric Flair. Vince Russo on his podcast. I don't tend to listen to Vince Russo because Vince Russo is like completely full of shit. He's worse than Disco Inferno. He's completely full of shit. Everything he says, when Vince Russo talks, I don't really believe anything he says. But Vince Russo made a point here. He did make a valid point. And he was like, well, Ric Flair wants to die in the ring. He very well could, because he has a failing heart. He really could fail. I don't know why a doctor would sign off on him to wrestle. Unless Flair takes him out for a few beers and gets him drunk and signs off on something. But anyway, so Vince Russo, I do agree with this, that Flair wants to die in the ring. And Flair even back up and said, well, yeah, that would be the perfect honor. Why would it be a perfect honor to die in the ring? We've seen wrestlers come close to dying in the ring. Some have died in the ring, actually. It's not something you want to see. Not really. So, it looks like AEW is going to have two old farts with a combined age of 943 years and Sting and Flair. Now listen, I don't mean to be putting down Flair. I respect what Flair did for the business. I don't mean to put down Sting. I respect what Sting has done for the business. Flair was one of the reasons I got into wrestling in the 80s. So Flair is one of the reasons, one of the many reasons, why I got into wrestling. But let's be honest. Should Flair be anywhere near a ring? No, he should not be. Because his health, if you look at Flair, he looks like he's 90. He really does. His face does not look the greatest. Why you would... I do not want to see the same match that I seen in the 80s and the 90s, when those were classic matches with Flair and Sting, NWA, WCW. But I do not want to see two aging guys who can't figure out when it's time to hang it up. You have Sting at 64 and you have Flair at 70. I mean, it's 74, I should say. So, what's the cat doing? Anyway, be careful, babe. I'm still on video.
I know. Turn that a little.
Okay.
Sorry. It's
Okay.
unedited.
Okay, 1 minute. Bring it back to
There,
where
it
it
was
was.
unedited. Sorry.
Videos are unedited. Stuff like this happens, you know.
Cat,
The cat.
we're foster parents right
Yeah,
now.
we're foster parents of a cat, so this cat likes to, you know, be a holy terror, a really holy terror.
Cute though.
Just a cute cat. And here I am talking about Flair, but I want to talk about a cat instead, but unedited. And I don't know where I was. I have no idea, but I do know this. I do not want to see somebody 74 years old in Flair having a match. He has went on record saying he wants to have another match. Wait a minute. If you look up on Wikipedia, it says that his last match was, you know, against Jarrett and whoever else. And if you look at that, that was horrendous to watch because Flair was gassed and he could barely do a move. He could barely do a figure four, literally and figuratively. This is a horrible idea. And if Tony Khan, the owner of AEW, has a brain upstairs, he will not go through with this match. He will not go through with it, but it looks like it's what they're going to do because Flair wants to have another retirement match. How many retirement matches does he have to have? Why don't they just book this at a retirement home? Loser and winner, the winner and loser, has to stay in the retirement home. Seriously, nobody wants to see this. Nobody. If you want to see Flair and Sting, watch some of their classic matches from NWA, WCW in the 80s and 90s. Not this. And of course I know there's probably going to be some AEW fanboys that are going to jump all over me when they're saying it's a superior product, when I don't really see how it's a superior product, when it's basically the same product that WCW ran, and they're just taking WWE veterans and signing them to AEW. So I don't see how it's a better product than WWE when all the products are completely stale to begin with. But you know what? That's all I really have to say, and that's all, folks. Till next time.